People are having to change their ways and their lifestyle due to inflation. It is so high. It is such a big adjustment. And unless you've gotten a raise or an increase or been able to downsize, then you are really feeling it, especially if you are already living above your means. So in this video, I am going to talk to you about an article that actually talks about the 6 ways inflation is making people change their lifestyles. I think it's very eye-opening and it will be an interesting discussion. If you are new here on my channel, I talk about saving money, simple living, how you can build a happier life through just being intentional. And I hope that that is something that resonates with you. If you are here and you are new, I would love for you to stick around. You can do so by just clicking on that subscribe button, and it is free, which is always a good thing. Now, if you know me, you know I love a good survey, some statistics, to put some beef, some meat, some substance, behind the message. And in this article, that's exactly what this is. What they did was they took a survey of 2,000 adults by the Nationwide Retirement Institute. They're the ones who did it. And it revealed the things that people are changing. And the article kind of lists it from 6 down to 1. So the most changed is number 1. So it starts off with the lower percentage, still really high, of what people are having to do in order to still have money to be able to go out and eat, house, clothe, all of those things. The article says that for the past year, rising inflation has caused levels of anxiety among consumers. Yeah, if you are not already feeling it over the last 2 years with everything going on, the inflation is just one more peg in that notch, causing people stress if you were not in a good financial position. It says many people are having to change their lifestyles, and it talks about the radical changes people have made as the prices soar. So number 6 is reducing contributions to their 401k. It says the response of making this change was 10% of those in the survey. And they said, this is a painful one. Just as racking up credit card debt can hamstring your ability to build a solid foundation, skipping 401k contributions puts dreams of a robust retirement at risk. So I think it's Dave Ramsey and his money plan that talks about, though, if you have debt or you don't have an emergency fund, then you shouldn't be contributing to a 401k until you've gotten those things paid off anyway, which makes sense. I mean, if you are contributing, let's just talk about this. If you're contributing, 15% of your income to your 401k, and yet you have, $5,000 of credit card debt and you're paying 23% interest every single month and you can't pay it off, you're only making minimum payments, who are you really hurting? It looks to me as if you're actually hurting yourself more. So if you get those things paid off, then you can build that emergency fund so you don't have to fall into the situation again where you put that stuff on a credit card, and you are able to, comfortably move that money to your retirement and not have to worry about it, or actually be robbing from one place to pay another is essentially what that would be doing. Number 5 is moving in with family to save money. Respondents making this change were 14%. Now, I was very well into working in 2008. And I have always been in and around the real estate industry. That is just the business that I have been in all aspects of it. So I've touched, all corners. And with this, I remember specifically people moving back in was a huge, because it was all the foreclosures, right? They were moving back in with family members. I don't think it's at that point now, because of housing and everything that happened in the last 2 years. But that time, it was crazy to hear those headlines of the amount of people who moved back in. And hey, I have no problem with this. I was lucky enough to my parents allow me to move back in. I think I was 24. Again, if you know my story, I was in debt in my 20s. I was out on my own and I could not afford it. I was not budgeting and it was not a good situation. And my parents let me come back home, use that, what I was spending on rent and utilities, all of that, to pay off that debt. I mean, having that accessibility and that love is an amazing thing to have. It talks about in this article, sharing costs with family members can trim your expenses substantially. Yes. It says, though, that the survey finds that the younger generations are pursuing this route in higher numbers. So with Generation Z being 30% and millennials being 21% most likely to choose this option. Well, I mean, I doubt that some baby boomers have parents they can move into, but are still around, right? For Generation Z, I am a millennial. I'm a grandma millennial in 84, so I'm 38 years old. And so I'm thinking, what is Generation Z? Are they in their late 20s now? I would assume so. I'm not sure. If you're a Generation Z or a millennial, put it down in the comments. I'd love to know. Now, I definitely know this is one that a lot of people are doing, probably more than the respondents in this survey, honestly. It says number 4 is looking for a better paying job. The respondents making this change are 19%. I myself ended up making a move back in September of 2021. So I know that there was the Great Resignation, and then there's been some articles about the Great Resignation regret, people regretting making the move. The workforce and the way people work has changed so dramatically. So, decades and decades ago, people would get a job. They would stay there for 30, 40 years. They would get a pension. They would do the same thing their whole life until they retired. And then, over the last, 20, 25 years, you started seeing, I believe it was an average of people would stay on a job about 5 years. And that the reasons were that people, when other people went to hire, it looked better on your application, or not application, on your resume if you'd been somewhere longer. But what I'm seeing in the last 2 years is that's not even the case. The need for workers is astronomical. The need for good workers is astronomical. So it doesn't matter if you've been at a company 6 months, a year, 10 years. They don't care anymore. Well, I'm sure some people do, but it appears that some people just don't. What they're looking for is a good, committed worker, and you just have to hope that they'll stick around and you can make it a good environment for them. It is definitely, which is great for us, right? It is, or for us that are employees of that aren't employers, okay? Where they say it's a seller's market or a buyer's market in a housing is definitely an employee's market right now. The article says for this one, the best way to soar above rising prices is to increase your income. I mean, it is what it is. Fortunately, now is a great time to look for a higher paying job. Never before have we seen so many open positions and so few workers to claim them. What's really going on here? I don't know. There are so many people that are hiring. I'm just like, what are the other people? Are there more positions now and less people? I haven't been able to figure out what people are doing unless they've just changed their lifestyle so much. Maybe a lot of them retired early. I don't know. But in this case, if inflation's what was 7.9%, then you've got to at least find, if you are already living, with no margin, meaning you were living paycheck to paycheck, or you were living, you brought home $2,000 a month and your expenses were $1,900 a month, right? Then you've got to at least imagine that you need to have a job or find a job with at least an 8 to 10% increase in pay, if not more. Number 3, rely on credit cards. Please don't. It hurts my heart that this is number 3. And I understand if you're in a certain position, but when I come to you guys on this channel, I come to you with this experience. I am not a person who talks about these things or talks about much of any of the things that I have not myself experienced and been through and had that life lesson. I think there's something to take away from somebody who's been in that position, who really knows how that feels, if you are also feeling that. And with this one, it says that respondents making this change, I guess using credit cards more often, is 21%. It says this is sad but inevitable. The price we pay for inflation. Carrying debt is a surefire way to destroy dreams of building wealth. Yet, when prices rise, millions of us have little choice other than to turn to the plastic in our wallets. Now, I don't like the way this is written. And why is that? You know, of course there are some people that don't have a choice. But at some point, each of you, including myself, everybody, has to take accountability for their actions. That does not mean you beat yourself up. That does not mean you berate yourself, you shame yourself, or you allow others to do so. But at some point, you need to take responsibility. You need to realize it's in most cases not somebody else's fault how you got there. You did that. Take responsibility, acknowledge what happened, and make a change from there. I know what I did. I know the actions I took to get into debt. I know I had a choice not to do that, but I didn't choose correctly. Now, some people would say, well, Jennifer, if you didn't choose correctly, then you wouldn't have gone through that experience and you wouldn't have this knowledge to be able to pass on to others now, which, you know, I wouldn't. So everything that happens in life is a choice. And, you know, we can go right or we can go left, but inevitably it is our story and it's how we get to where we are in life. It's the experiences that we have that shape us into the people we are. If we never had bad experiences, if we never made mistakes, we wouldn't be as rounded and well-rounded and understanding and empathetic and likely as kind of people as people who've never experienced a lot of heartache or a lot of disruptions in their life. So, you know, millions of us have little choice. I don't like the word choice. Yes, I mean, I guess it is your choice, but if you've put yourself in that position, don't blame others if you have deliberately put yourself in that position. Take accountability for it. Number 2 is definitely happening more, driving less. It's like as soon as people were starting to get back out more, gas prices started to go through the roof. It says respondents making this change are 35%. Of all the climbing costs, perhaps none is loathed as much as the rising cost of gasoline. Gas prices are now at all-time high. Now, the thing with gas prices is the gas prices are one of those snowballs. You know, it starts off as a little like baseball and it turns into an avalanche because it has such a ripple effect on things. The cost of getting food from here to there is via truck, and you know the trucker now has to pay higher gas, and the gas then, or the cost of that gas then becomes higher food prices so that they can still make profits, meaning the food distributors. It ripples down, and then what happens there is food is now higher, and so when you go out to a restaurant, food is now more expensive prepared at a restaurant. So where you've got gas prices high, you've got restaurant prices increasing. It's just such a trickle, and it goes to many, many different areas. And number 1 is eating out less, talking about eating out less with the cost of gas correlating with the cost of food, correlating with the cost of eating out. It says respondents making this change is 48%. You have to pity the poor restaurateurs. For 2 years, they had to battle keeping their businesses afloat. Just as everything was getting back to normal, Americans have found a new reason to dine at home, rising prices. And I mentioned this on another video. I think it was my husband actually who came up with this little insightfulness and said, you know, what he's noticing when he's out, because with his job and what he does, he's noticing that there aren't as many people at the kind of the chain restaurants. He thinks that what's happening is instead of people eating out more often or as often, meaning, you know, several times a week at maybe like Chipotle, Taco Bell, your local, you know, brewery, whatever, you know, the normal restaurants, your local steakhouse, what people are doing is doing it less often, maybe once a week, maybe every 2 weeks, maybe once a month, but they're doing a nicer dinner. So they're going to a nicer restaurant, something that's, you know, more enjoyable and making it more of an experience, which I think is a great idea. And one of those things that I think is a great frugal hack. You know, there's been stories of people talking about, you know, people go out to eat all the time now, whereas people used to use that as an experience, as something special. You know, you would go out for birthdays or anniversaries. But when you do it so often, it becomes very commonplace and it's not as special or unique. So I think maybe that's helping getting back to that practice, but that's still not helpful because you've got all of these restaurants that boomed during that time of increased usership that are hurting now and are continuing to hurt from this. I hope you enjoyed this article. I would love to know what changes you have had to make in your lifestyle due to inflation. Let me know down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I would love to have you back for more videos.